When it comes to being a digital marketing freelancer, there are two main criterion of clients that you could focus on. The first one is digital marketing agencies, the second is working for brands direct. In this video, we're going to break down the pros and cons of working with each, so you have the information you need to decide what lane you want to go down. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ginny Nichols, founder of Interim Digital, and we connect the top freelancers in the world with the top brands and agencies. So we know a little bit about what it takes to be a freelancer. So if you're looking to diversify your client portfolio as a freelancer, this is the video for you. So to help us fairly compare and contrast the advantages and disadvantages of working across brands and agencies, we've come up with 5 specific comparison pillars. Now, those 5 pillars are ability and growth of opportunity, diversification of briefs, access to tools and software, access to teams and team support, and number 5, the golden rate rule. So in this video, we're going to break down each of those 5 pillars so that you can see the pros and cons that come with individual agencies and individual brands so that you know where you stand from day one. So let's get into the first pillar, ability to grow your account. Now, I personally feel like the biggest pro ever of partnering with digital agencies is that you don't automatically just get one client. The nature of agencies is that they have so many clients themselves that if you become sticky as a freelancer and you do a really good job, then you often get asked back to service other accounts. The beauty of that is that all you have to do to be in line to grow that account and grow revenue and grow capacity with that particular agency is do your job really well. And you should be doing that anyway if you're a freelancer. So the ability to grow over time and actually do more and more work for one client without having to repitch and repitch and repitch is pretty high with agency world, as long as you do a really good job. It's really important to remember that agencies are under so much pressure from their own clients that if we come in and become a pain in the neck to work with and actually don't do our job very well, then they'll get rid of us as quickly as they onboarded us. However, if you do a really good job, they'll ask you back time and time again because you help relieve that bit of pressure that they're under. So for me, if you want to grow your accounts, I personally think you get a bigger advantage, a big opportunity to do that with agencies than you do with a brand. Because when you work directly with a single brand, that one brand is your one client and they don't tend to have other opportunities, just nature of the beast, because they are a particular end goal. Whereas the clients tend to work with end goal clients or kind of end of line clients, however you want to term it. Therefore, the opportunity is a lot bigger. So really, it depends where you want to sit. If you want to kind of get your head down and get into the groove of a singular brand and not worry about growing your accounts, then 100% the brand route would be better for you. But for me personally, I like agencies because the opportunity to grow is a lot bigger. So let's look at pillar number 2, diversity of brief. So again, I think this is it's not necessarily a pro or a con. It really depends what kind of person you are. So if you like to diversify what you're working on, if you like to work across sectors, if you like to work across different pillars within your already own niche, then agencies are a great shout, because one moment you might be working on a fashion client, the next you might be working on auto, you might be working on finance or lead gen, so that you need to quickly adapt and shift and move, and it keeps that diversity of projects alive. However, if you prefer to really get into the nitty-gritty of one website or one brief or one brand, then working for brand direct is definitely a really good route to go down. And another nice thing about that, with that kind of doubling down on one particular brief and one particular client, is that you often see the value that you're bringing more clearly. Because you're actually discussing the brief with that particular client and you are communicating directly with that client more so than through an agency, and you are sometimes, especially in the world of SEO and PPC and content, you're actually physically making those updates to people's websites themselves, or tweaking campaigns, or updating metadata, or whatever it might be, you can often make an impact a lot quicker. So even though you're not necessarily getting the diversity of working across all different briefs and all different clients, you are able to see the value that you bring a bit quicker in most cases. So to summarise, depending on what kind of person you are and what kind of floats your boat in the world of freelance and digital marketing, if you prefer diversity, agency is probably better for you. If you prefer to double down and be able to see the value you're bringing a bit quicker, then brand side is probably a better option. So the third pillar is around access to tools and equipment. So what you tend to find on agency side, and I'm sure you will have seen this if you worked agency side yourself, is that they often have kind of a suite of their own tools. And that can either be kind of proprietary stuff that they've developed themselves, or it can be off the shelf tools. So say for an SEO, it could be something like SEMrush, or it could be Ahrefs. Tools that often come in at, a few $100s or a few £100 a month, which if you don't have, having access via an agency can be really, really, really handy. Now, on the flip side, what you don't tend to find with smaller businesses and smaller brands is that they do just naturally have them. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, as you can come in and pitch for those from the start and explain why they're really important to have. And a really quick value add that you can bring, especially to a smaller business, is to help and advise on these sets of tools that they should get to help them monitor things like website performance, ranking performance, etc. So you get to set that up from scratch yourself, as opposed to kind of inheriting stuff that other people have set up. I guess the trickier arm with that is that you have to kind of sell that into the business as to why they should outlay on these particular tools to help you with your job. The objection handle around that is the fact that you can say to them that this is helping you long term, and you track your your performance, and it's a bit of an easier sell in with agencies, as they tend to already have this, and they have a good understanding of why they're so important. So they're not huge pros and cons with this particular kind of software or tool pillar, but it's definitely something worth considering, because when you go freelance, one of the biggest things that you kind of take for granted if you work for an agency is the fact that they have all of this stuff already. Now, the fourth pillar is around teams. So again, this similar to the diversity of brief element, it really depends what kind of person you are and how you prefer to work. So if you double up with an agency, you tend to have a bit more backup. So you tend to be working alongside, say, a client services team or other members of an SEO team. So you might just be adding headcount to their SEO team, or you might be a copywriter who's partnering with their SEO team, or however the dynamics look at an agency. As a freelancer, you tend to partner more as part of a team. Whereas if you're going brand direct, then it's quite often just you as that singular port of call for a channel. Unless you're working for a really big brand that has kind of an established e-commerce team already, or lead gen team, or digital team, or whatever it might be. More often than not, you are that single entity. Now, the pros of that is that you have complete autonomy and complete agency around how you deploy the strategy, what you sell in as the strategy, what tweaks you make if the strategy isn't going right, how you display the information, the reporting. All of that stuff is completely autonomous to you, which is brill, because then you have direct impact over the value that you're bringing. But you could see a downside of that is that you are working totally by yourself. Whereas with an agency, you've got that kind of nurturing team around you, you've got a bit more support, you potentially have a bit of a filter between you and the client that makes communication a bit easier, and all of those things, where even down to things like soundboarding, if you come up with an idea and you think, am I going insane, or is this actually a good idea? You've got more people on a similar level playing field and understanding of you in your channel, or at least channels that complement your channel, for you to kind of soundboard those ideas off and just sanity check ideas. So again, as opposed to pros and cons, there's just big differences between being kind of a lone wolf in a brand or part of a team, and it's really down to you how you prefer to work, and whatever kind of avenue you choose is going to make you happiest in your freelance career. So the fifth and final pillar is around rates, and we always recommend that freelancers are flexible with their rates depending on what a brief looks like, or a client looks like, or a potential client looks like. And here's what we mean when it comes to agency versus brand. So when we're looking at agency, the opportunity to grow that client and grow that account is high, because as long as you do a good job, they'll likely come back for more. But what that doesn't involve is constantly re-pitching. So you tend to pitch for one client, win that client, do a really good job, and that account will probably grow naturally. Whereas with a brand, if you're just focusing on brands, it's pitching and pitching and pitching and pitching and hoping you're going to win. And then you have to do that several times to win, 4 or 5 brands, as opposed to one agency whereby you'll be working on 4 or 5 accounts. So that barrier to entry to grow is a lot lower and a lot easier with an agency world. Also, the pressure isn't all on you. Now, we've talked about this kind of team support network that you naturally get from an agency. Now, what we're not saying is that pressure isn't there, because pressure is high in agency world. You've probably worked in agency if you're watching this video now. You know how pressurized that environment is, and it's more down to volume of work where that pressure comes from, as opposed to everything being on your head personally to deliver. So when that responsibility is kind of taken off you and it is dispersed in amongst a team environment, whereas a brand, it's all on you to deliver, you've got that cushion of people around you, so it's not as intense when it comes to delivery on results. You've also got access to software, so you don't necessarily have to fork out physical cash to help you do your job as part of an agency. So you can probably see where I'm going with this, and what we're suggesting and what we think is correct and right within the market is that one end of your day rate is tailored specifically towards agency, and that sits a little bit lower than potentially what you'd pitch at brand because of all of the reasons that we've just mentioned. Now, when it comes to brand, and it is all on you, you are the sole point of contact, you are the sole delivery of results provider, you are the sole person who's supposed to turn their entire SEO strategy around, or their whole e-commerce, KPIs all hit by yourself. That pressure is different. So it's not necessarily relating to volume of work, but it's relating to actual driving of commercial growth for one particular business, all on you. Now, that sounds quite extreme, but it is quite normal within brand world. So with that added responsibility also potentially comes the added cost of software and tools, and it also comes without that cushion or that nice team support network. It also sometimes means, especially with owner-manager brands, that your direct comms are with kind of MDs and owners of businesses who are investing their own personal cash in your day rate. So they are naturally going to be all over you and naturally wanting to know what's going on, when it's happening, and why things aren't moving. So, it's a bit of a generalist view, but from our experience and having worked in digital agencies for 10 years and then freelance myself for several years and run interim, that is very much the generalised case of what it's like to work with owner, manager, brand direct as opposed to agency. With that, however, means that you can warrant a higher day rate because all of that onus is on you. If all you care about is high day rate, I would go for brand. If you want diversity of brief and diversity of portfolio, I'd go agency. If you want ability to grow and maintain a long-term relationship where they come back for more repeatedly without you having to pitch all the time, agency is probably your bag. But if you want to be able to demonstrate value quickly and get stuck into one particular brand that you end up working with for a very long time, then maybe go brand direct. But all in all, it's really up to you. But hopefully in this video that gives you a little bit of an idea as to the big core differences between partnering with brands as a freelancer and partnering with digital agencies as a freelancer. So now you have the educated information to make that decision yours. If you find that video at all useful, then hit the like button and subscribe to us below for more tips and tricks on how to thrive as a freelancer.